Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of my playthrough. I started off summer day 1 by clearing some of the debris. I then said good morning to Nova, checked the bat cave, which it had nothing, and then went to say good morning to the chickens. I did get a large brown egg, which I need for the community center. And then I did check on the cow. I did think my chests were getting a little too crammed, so I did decide to make another chest for all of my farming items. I then watered my ancient seed. And then sold the mayo and headed off to the piers to get seeds. I did end up buying 30 melons just because I need 5 gold quality ones for the community center. I bought 2 tomato seeds, 8 blueberry seeds, 2 hot peppers, 12 wheat because I need 10 for the community center, 2 radishes, 2 poppy seeds, 2 spangle seeds, 8 corn, and 3 sunflower seeds. And then I headed back to the farm to get these planted down. I did end up making basic fertilizer for the melons just to up in my chance of getting the gold quality melons. I did end up forgetting about the 9 melons in my chest, so those are included in this. I did lay out my blueberries and some of the other crops, just in case I did get sprinklers. because this is going to be a lot of crops to water for the next couple of days. I finished planting most of those, and by the time I went to go water them all, I ran out of energy, so I made a field snack. I did end up grabbing things that I needed to grab for the community center. And then I spent the rest of the day looking for new foraging. So far, I ended up finding 2 grapes. And then I headed to the Cindersap Forest as well to look for foraging. After I got a spiceberry in the Cindersap Forest, I made my way to the community center. In the community center, I donated a cave carrot. I donated the spiceberry, the grape, and the sweet pea. Which got me 30 summer seeds. And then I had a wild plum to donate. And then in the pantry, I donated a large white egg and a large brown egg. Then the bulletin board, I donated an aquamarine. Then I headed back to the farm, sold off a few things, organized my inventory, and then called it a night. I leveled up to 6 in foraging, and I made 320 gold. On the morning of day 2, I started off by watering all of my crops. After that, I did end up making a chest for the milk pail so I could just leave it in the barn instead of always having it in my inventory. I did also check on the chickens while I was over there. I did also end up grabbing 300 wood so I could take it to the beach. At the beach, I used the 300 wood to repair the broken bridge. I did end up getting the foraging that was over here as well. I did also end up deciding to fish in the ocean because I needed a tuna, a tilapia, and a pufferfish for the community center. I did end up catching all three. I then made my way up to the mountains to attempt to catch a sturgeon. I did end up not catching a sturgeon, and I did remember that I picked up a quest from Clint to get him a green algae. So I made my way to the blacksmith's. Luckily, I didn't have to wait outside because he was on his way out. I did get a prize token from that quest. And I went back to the farm and sold off all the fish I didn't need. But I accidentally sold off the tilapia without realizing it. I then headed to the saloon because I also picked up a quest for a gold bar for Emily. I also made my way to Lewis's to redeem my prize token and got 3 mystery boxes. Then I made my way back to the farm, organized my inventory, sold off the 1 sweet pea that I didn't need, and then decided to call it a night. I did end up hearing noise in the middle of the night as of an earthquake. And then I did end up making 2,832 gold that night. On the morning of day 3, I started off by watering my crops. That's going to be the trend for the next couple of weeks. I then went to check in the bat cave, which there was nothing. And then I checked on the chickens, got some more mayo, and the cow is still a baby, so I can't get milk from it yet. I then sold off the mayo. I then grabbed the fish I needed to donate. Then headed down to the beach to fish up a tilapia again. I got the tilapia. Then ended up checking for more foraging. And then headed up to the mountains to fish for a sturgeon. I did end up fishing the rest of the night, and I still didn't get a sturgeon. So I ended up making my way back to the farm. Then deciding I was going to go to the community center so I didn't accidentally sell one of them off. I donated the pufferfish, the tuna, and the tilapia. And then checked my inventory to make sure I didn't have anything else to donate. Then made my way back to the farm, sold everything I didn't need, organized my inventory, said goodnight to Nova, and then called it a night. I did end up making 3,430 gold. On the morning of day 4, I end up making some tappers for some of the trees that are done in the tree farm. And then I ended up watering my crops. Then I headed to check on the chickens and the cow. which the cow is still a baby. And then I got more mayo from the chickens. And eggs, obviously. I checked the bat cave where there was still nothing. I did end up getting more wood. So I could commission a coop upgrade. After that, I headed to Robin's to put in the big coop upgrade. I then organized my inventory, then decided I was going to take any geodes, mystery boxes, or anything that I had to donate to the museum. I opened all of the geodes and mystery boxes and ended up getting a few things to donate. So I made my way to the museum. And donated them. I then headed to the beach to give Jazz a birthday present. I then headed back to the farm, sold some things off, organized my inventory a little bit, I did end up making a few field snacks, and then cleared some more of the land. I did end up smelting a few more ore. And then I ended up calling it a night. I did end up making 875 gold. On the morning of day 5, my wheat was ready. So I started off by harvesting that. Putting the 10 I needed in the chest. And then selling the rest and putting the 5 hay into the silo. I collected my bars that I started smelting last night. Made a few more tappers. Put them on the trees that were grown. Checked on the bat cave. Checked on the chickens and the cow, which he did give me 1 milk today. And then I watered all of my crops. I did end up heading to the mines. I then made it down all the way to the bottom of the mines. Then I started to work on some of the Monster Slayer goals, but then I did go to the Adventures Guild to check to see how far I was on some of those. Which it looks like I needed one more cave insect. I did end up getting the bug goal because I just needed one more. And then I decided to reset level 15 to get Dougie's to try to get that goal completed. Then I headed back to the farm. Organized my inventory. I did get another ancient seed. And then I ended up calling it a night. I did end up making 858 gold. On the morning of day 6, there was a strange green rain. I did get a letter from Gus saying that some of them were hanging out in the saloon until they could figure out what was going wrong. I did end up deciding that I was going to clear a lot of this fiber so I could get moss and the fiber from it. It's never bad to have a lot of them. I did check on the chickens and the cow. I then made my way to the saloon to say hi to everyone and try to figure out what was going on with the screen rain. I then also checked on George, Evelyn, and Alex. Then I also went to check on Jody, Sam, and Vincent. Then I headed up on the mountains to check on Demetrius, Robin, Sebastian, and Maru. I did end up clearing a lot of these weeds. And of course, Demetrius was catching samples. I then made my way inside of Robin's to figure out where they were hiding. And they were downstairs in Sebastian's room. And obviously Robin was mad that Demetrius was outside. I then headed back to the farm, cleared some of my inventory, made a few more tappers thinking I could put them on the trees, but I could not. But I did put it on some of the ones that were not affected by the green rain. I ended up smelting more ore, and then making my way down to the cindersap forest to clear some more of this moss and fiber. I did end up finding a green tree that dropped fiddle fern, which I also needed for the community center, so that was nice. I then continued to clear in the cindersap forest. I did end up losing track of time and passed out at 2 a.m. I did end up making 156 gold that night. On the morning of day 7, the Queen of Sauce was on the TV. And she taught me how to make baked fish. I ended up clearing my inventory from last night after passing out. Made a few more tappers. Checked my mail, and Linus helped me out last night. And my coop upgrade was done. And then I started watering my crops. I checked on the chickens and the cow. I did also check the bat cave, and it had an orange, which I needed for the community center. I ended up selling a few things off I didn't need. And then made my way down to the Cindersap forest to check the traveling merchant, in which she had a red cabbage. So I did end up buying that, because I didn't want to risk the chance of not getting it again. I mean, it was kind of a lot, but it's worth it. I ended up clearing some of the green rain trees from yesterday. Then I headed to the Cindersap forest to continue to clear more trees. I did end up running out of energy, so I headed back home, organized my inventory, and called it a night. I did end up leveling up 7 in foraging, and then I made 905 gold that night. Thank you for tuning into this week's video. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.